This film is hands down one of the greatest sequels, if not the greatest sequel ever made. And I think it's an absolute masterpiece of the last 20 years. And it is now, I consider it one of my favorite movies ever because it's so well made. It's the script and the story are absolutely phenomenal. It's such a great story. And I don't know how, when they first announced the sequel, I don't know how they were going to top the original Blade Runner, which is one of my favorite movies. But in many ways, they did top Blade Runner and improved upon it and actually created a more human, personal, emotional story in this film.
Yeah, and in terms of like echelon of sequels, it's like this, The Godfather Part 2, and The Dark Knight. That's like about it. That's all I can think of on the spot in terms of a sequel of a movie, of a masterpiece that's equal to or better than. And this is debatable if it's better or not.
But also, Dark Knight you can't throw in because Batman Begins isn't a masterpiece.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
So
I'll
you
give you
can't
that.
throw that in because the fact that it was a sequel to a masterpiece is the requirement, and it surpassed it in many ways.
Okay, Godfather Part 2. How about that?
Yeah,
All right, so that's an equivalent comparison. That's about it.
And what's really great about this film is in the marketing and the trailers, you don't really know much of who Kay is. You know he's a Blade Runner, obviously, but as you find out in the film very early on, he's actually a replicant himself. I walked into this movie thinking that he was a human who was a Blade Runner who hunts down replicants, but it was a fascinating take on a Blade Runner that now Blade Runners are replicants that are created to hunt down old replicants.
Yeah, and so if you haven't seen the original Blade Runner, real quick, it's about these Blade Runners who is played by Harrison Ford, the main Blade Runner, who hunt down replicants who in that world are these humanoid robotic beings, androids, and Blade Runners are used to hunt them down and kill them and terminate them because they've lived past their cycle or they're living rogue. And watch the original if you haven't before you start this if you want, and before you watch Blade Runner 2049, obviously. And that movie changed the sci-fi genre forever. It was made by Ridley Scott in 1982. And the film ends with Harrison Ford's character, Deckard, a human Blade Runner who refuses to terminate Rachel, who's a replicant, because he has fallen for her, and it ends with them running off together.
Exactly. And then just like the original Blade Runner, one of the main themes is the question of humanity, because it comes into question the fact that Deckard could actually be a replicant himself. And there are actually several nods to this. I want to get into it real quick because it's a lot of fun.
About the original?
Oh, yeah, about the original, just about Deckard.
Go for it.
It's a theory that Deckard the entire time was a replicant, and Ridley Scott actually ascertains this theory, saying that he did it on purpose, and Ridley Scott believes that Deckard is a replicant because... just like the replicants in the film, sometimes there's like a little glowing light in their eyes. Deckard has that glowing light in his eyes in several scenes in the film. And also, his partner makes the origami unicorn at the end of the film and leaves it out for him. And now the unicorn is a memory in Deckard's mind he dreams about often, but he doesn't tell anyone about the unicorn. And so the fact that his partner knows about the unicorn and makes the origami unicorn begs the question that his partner read his case file and knows that he's a replicant and knows what memories were implanted into Deckard's mind.
And the origami unicorn is a representation in 2049 is the wooden horse.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is basically the same kind of thing, but we'll get into that a little later on. And it's a symbol about humanity.
And so this film, its main theme is, what does it mean to be human? And what is humanity? What is the soul? And this film explores those themes in a high-budget action sci-fi drama in such a brilliant way, and I love it.
And this is a very artistic movie. It's very underappreciated, in my opinion. Brilliant directors for both films, and just similarities. It's Ridley Scott and Denis. But Blade Runner 2049 is probably the most visually stunning film I've seen in the last 10 years. It's groundbreaking cinematography. The film is probably Roger Deakins' finest work as a cinematographer. He won the Oscar for this film. I think he won back-to-back years.
Yeah.
This is one of them. This film, just like the original, has the right leading man with Ryan Gosling as Kay. Plus, he kind of looks like Harrison Ford, which kind of comes later on into the story. And again, the symbolism between the origami unicorn and the wooden horse are just a few similarities between the two, the original and the sequel.
Yeah, Roger Deakins has always been arguably the best cinematographer of all time. But to see him finally work inside the realm of a large budget, huge scale science fiction film, you got to see the true genius of his artistry and being able to build and light these sets in such amazing, unique, and fresh ways. And I've never seen cinematography like this before. Like, for example, the Las Vegas scenes where Kay is walking through the desert of Las Vegas, and it's all red and orange and very dusty. He actually was inspired by a dust storm that happened in Sydney, Australia several years ago, where Sydney actually looked just like Las Vegas in this film, where it was just the air was filled with dust, and then the sun's warm rays created this orange glow across the entire city. And so he used that as inspiration. And the reason why this film looks so good is they built all these sets. So they built the Las Vegas set. They built Wallace's building set, the Wallace Tower. They built miniatures of Los Angeles. So when Kay's flying to Los Angeles, that's an actual physical set that they built with miniatures.
Just like the original Blade Runner.
Exactly. They built that big trash city. And then they built all of Wallace's set, like that huge room with the water, the pool of water around, and then the light reflected off the water on the walls. Everything in this film is tangible and real, and that's why it looks so good. And Deakins lit them all in brilliant ways.
And many times with reboots or like long-awaited sequels, filmmakers will, simply just remix the same characters. They're safe additions to the franchise. But Denis was incredibly ambitious with this film and took it to unique levels of filmmaking. And it's one of those rare masterpiece sequels. And it's still too soon to tell if it's better than the original. I think it just needs more time to like sit and be rewatched over and over again and analyzed. But again, it's very underappreciated. It didn't even make $100 million domestically in the United States.
Yeah, which
is insane.
Just like Edge of Tomorrow, this was a bomb, and I think it's because of the marketing. They hit a lot of what the story was in the marketing and the trailers, and also, I think people were just so interested in just watching mindless action and superheroes that something like this, which is thought-provoking and deep, people are less likely to find an interest in watching that.
Yeah, we love the MCU, but there are a lot of great movies out there that aren't getting seen because we're so diluted with Marvel and superheroes right now.
Yeah, and then this movie has so many important themes. I think one of the biggest themes in the film is the loss of humanity within the humans, because Kay is actually like the most human character in the entire movie, even though he's an android. And the reason for that is because in this world of the Blade Runner world, nature has been destroyed. There are no trees anywhere. Wood is actually the most valuable mineral on the entire planet. If you have a piece of wood, like when he gets his little wooden horse inspected, the guy tells him like he could like buy anything with this little bit of wood. And so there are no trees. There's no kind of nature left in the world except for water and earth. It's just water and stone. There's rain and there's rock and steel and plastic. And so humanity has lost its connection to nature, and in doing so, and in embracing artificiality, humanity has lost its soul. And so this film is set in a world where humans, they've lost their meaning in life. They've disconnected from the earth.
Yeah, and ironically, many of the human characters in this film are essentially powerless to the story and the plot and the action. The replicants do all the work in this movie.
Yeah.
They do all the actions. They perform all the tasks. Like Joshi, played by Robin Wright, the commanding officer of Kay, just gives orders that Kay fulfills. Wallace gives orders.
And she seems more heartless than an android.
Wallace gives orders which Love carries out. Even Deckard is powerless. He is mainly used for exposition. He can't really fight anymore. He can't stop Wallace. So basically the replicants have kind of replaced the humans already. Mm-hmm. It's been decades since the story of the original, and Kay is a new Blade Runner and an officer who's, again, designed to track down rogue replicants who are living longer than their previously programmed lifetime cycles. And I personally believe this is probably Ryan Gosling's best performance, and I think he was perfect for the role. He's like that ideal actor for, hiding vulnerabilities under just like this handsome facade or this handsome shell, and his ability to show the struggle with his non-human entity, dealing with emotions, dealing with, am I alive? Do I have a soul? Do I exist? I think it was super smart to make the new Blade Runner with a fresh face, a fresh idea, rather than continuing with Deckard's storyline and just going back to Deckard's the lead character in the film. Now they have a new Blade Runner and a new story and a new plot. And I think that was the best way to do it rather than doing something off of Deckard or even just remaking it in general.
Yeah, it was great to make Kay a replicant because eventually what happens with his storyline and his arc is that he ends up believing that he could be the child of Rachel and Deckard, which would mean that he would have humanity, he would have a soul, and he wouldn't just be a robot. Because that's his biggest struggle internally, is the idea that even though he exists, he doesn't have a soul. And he even admits it in public. And even though he's a replicant, there's still like, you can see that there's a reluctance to him. He doesn't enjoy what he's doing. And it seems like he's struggling already at the beginning of the film internally with what he is in the world around him. And so that struggle gets compounded when he comes to the idea that he could be part human. And this is the struggle of him of him trying to understand if he has a soul and if he has humanity inside of him.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a little bit. And so the film opens up where you don't really know if Gosling's a replicant or human. You kind of just think he's a Blade Runner like Harrison Ford was.
Yeah.
But then you eventually find out that the whole time he's a replicant. And you find out pretty early on in the film when he goes to investigate Dave Bautista's character, Sapper, who has a great small role in this film. And so at Sapper's house, he's just a replicant who's just living as a protein farmer. And Kay is ordered to terminate him or bring him in. And this is where we learn that Kay is a replicant, and that he's a more advanced replicant, a Nexus 9, compared to Sapper. And he terminates Sapper, but not without Sapper getting in some important dialogue talking about how he's never seen a miracle, so he doesn't understand what it means to be alive. Or what does he say?
Yeah, you've never seen a miracle.
Yeah.
This miracle that Sapper is talking about leads us to the main villain of the film, Wallace. And now Wallace has taken over the production of replicants, and his main goal is to create the ability for replicants to reproduce, because it happened with Rachel, and he doesn't understand how it happened. Because for Wallace, he can make millions of replicants, but he wants to make billions of replicants, and the only way that will be possible is if they're able to reproduce on their own. And so Wallace is trying to crack the code between trying to make fertile replicants that can reproduce.
Yeah, it's played by Jared Leto, and this is a great performance by him, and he's just like this airy figure. He's blind, but he has these odd-looking eyes. Wallace is head of Wallace Corporation, which is now a replicant manufacturer, like you said, and he's pushing boundaries of replicants, and he created the Nexus 9, which is a far superior replicant in terms of strength, intelligence, and loyalty. The loyalty of a Nexus 9, like his love replicant, is her loyalty is undeniable. And,
yeah, like they don't go rogue like the old ones did.
Yeah, and Wallace is an interesting villain because he sort of saved humanity before purchasing the Tyrell Corporation, because before he was in genetically modifying food, which helps save humanity. So he ends up from wanting to save humanity to wanting to now he wants to colonize interstellar. He wants to interstellarly colonize the galaxy with replicants. And so, like you said, his main goal is to create replicants that can procreate. And he has this incredible intelligence and also this like eerie calmness to his character. He's like an evil Zen yoga master or something. It's like that weird music in the background.
Jared Leto based his character on Silicon Valley tech investors that he knew in real life.
I wouldn't be surprised, man.
But also, he took it to the next level with the blindness, where on set, Jared Leto actually wore blinding contacts so that he couldn't actually see at all when he was on set. And so he said that even though he shared scenes with Harrison Ford, he never actually saw Harrison Ford in person because he was blind the whole time.
And so basically, Wallace's new motivation in the film, besides creating a procreation, is once he also learns of the childbirth, he sets love out to follow Kay on his mission of finding the child and terminating it, because he wants to learn the secret of how a replicant gave birth and procreated. Mm-hmm. And we're also introduced to Joy, who is played by Ana de Armas. And,
your girlfriend?
Yeah, Ben's girlfriend. And Joy is basically a computer program, artificial intelligence, and also Kay's girlfriend. And they have a very complicated relationship in the film because both of these characters are programmed beings. They're artificial intelligences, but they also both develop feelings for each other, and they both seem to be in love with each other.
I'm not sure that Joy is ever in love with him. I think that Joy is a program that's designed to make the user feel loved, to tell them what they want to hear, and to do what they want to see. And so I think for Kay, Joy represents his desire for connection because, as we learn from the replicant prostitutes, he's not interested in having physical sex with anyone. He wants that emotional connection, which is why he prefers Joy, because there's no physical connection. It's all emotional and personal. And so this shows the internal struggle of him actually kind of having a kind of real consciousness and a real kind of soul and heart to him. And yes, they have the special bond, but I think that Joy ultimately, yes, she says she loves him, but I think that's just the programming. And we find out later on in the film that he ends up believing that as well.
I think they do generally have developed real feelings for each other. I mean, Kay is absolutely crushed when Jay is eventually terminated when she's in the Emanator.
Agreed.
And which ends her existence forever.
It devastates him.
But Joy's personality develops over time once she becomes portable with the Emanator. And once she's portable with Kay, you get to really see a new side of her. And I think she's also starting to develop a soul and questioning her humanity at the same time that Kay is questioning his humanity and questioning his soul. And also, right before she gets destroyed, she tells Kay that she loves him. And yes, it can be, from what you said, that she's just a program designed to make you feel love, but also she didn't have to say that right before her death. And so right before her death, the one thing she wanted to do was tell Kay that she loved him.
And so upon his investigation at Sapper's Tree, this is a striking point for Kay because he finds on the root of the tree the date. And the date he finds on this is a birth date, and it correlates exactly to a memory of his. He has this implanted memory of when he's a child in an orphanage, and he has a wooden horse for a toy, and on the feet of the horse are inscribed this exact same date. And so this is an odd thing to him because why would the date from this memory of his horse be graved onto Sapper's Tree?
And so this date leads him to look up DNA databases to find processed children of that date. And he's also using Joy as his sidekick to figure all this out. And in his investigation of this, he finds that there are two children born on that day and processed at a specific orphanage. And one, I think, died, and one is still alive but missing. Yeah. And so this also starts to question, and Joy's kind of egging him on, that maybe he could possibly be this missing child. Maybe he could be the replicant that was born from a human and replicant.
And so now he's actually beginning to question who he really is, because if that's true, then that means his memories are real. And if his memories are real, that means he's a real human.
And this is just like Rachel in the original Blade Runner. So in the original Blade Runner, Rachel doesn't know that she's a replicant yet.
Yeah.
But throughout the investigation, and then eventually she's told that she's a replicant because she has planted memory, so she doesn't think she thinks she's a real human being. And then the shock on her face and her reaction to learn that she's not human, it's reverse of Kay, where Kay knows he's a replicant, but now he's starting to question, do I have existence? Do I have a soul?
Yeah.
Am I human?
And so now his mission, even though he's been assigned this mission to find this child and kill it, now he believes that he's the child, so now his new mission is to find Deckard to get answers. Because he thinks that he's Deckard and Rachel's child.